Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping back in time, way back, over 2,000 years ago. We're going to explore a world whose inventions are, believe it or not, all around us, from how we vote to the movies we watch. Yep, we are talking about the incredible world of ancient Greece. Let's dig in and see how their ideas became our reality.
So, you gotta wonder, right? How did a bunch of people living on these rocky islands all that time ago come up with stuff we still use every single day? I mean, things like democracy, philosophy, even the Olympics. Well, that's exactly what we're gonna figure out. And to do that, we have to start where they did, right on the shores of the Mediterranean.
You know, most ancient civilizations we talk about grew up around these big, powerful rivers. But not Greece. The story of Greece really begins on the water. It's all about islands and ships and the sea, which for them was kind of like a superhighway and a giant protective wall all at once.
Okay, so our story kicks off with two of these early cultures. First, the Minoans on the island of Crete, and a little later, the Mycenaeans over on the mainland. But then, something weird happens. Around 1100 BCE, it's like history just hits the pause button. For 300 years, written records and art, they just disappear. Historians call this the Greek Dark Ages, and it's this huge, mysterious gap in the story that we're still trying to piece together.
And if you look at these two early groups, you see a really big difference. The Minoans, they were master traders, sailing all over the place. But their writing, this stuff called Linear A, is a code we still haven't cracked. It is a complete mystery. Now, the Mycenaeans, on the other hand, were much more of a military power. And we can actually read their writing, which we call Linear B. And that gives us a much clearer window into what their world was actually like.
So why were these ancient Greeks such amazing sailors? Well, this right here tells you everything you need to know. The land was super rocky and mountainous, which is not great for growing stuff like wheat. So, what do? You adapt. They grew things that loved the tough soil, like olives for oil and grapes for wine. For everything else, well, they had to hit the water, becoming expert sailors to trade for all the things they couldn't grow back home.
All right, so after those mysterious Dark Ages, Greek culture didn't just come back, it exploded. This new era saw the rise of these powerful, independent city-states, and each one had its own government, its own army, its own identity. Let's take a look at how these little mini-countries actually worked.
So, the most important word to know here is polis. A polis wasn't just a city, it was the whole shebang. It was a community, an entire self-governing mini-country, and each one was fiercely independent. This whole structure would define Greek politics for hundreds of years.
And when you think of the polis, two always come to mind, and they could not have been more different. On one side, you have Sparta, a society built from the ground up for military strength. Everybody, boys and girls, was trained to be tough. And fun fact, Spartan women actually had more rights than a lot of other Greek women and could even own land. And on the other side, you've got Athens, a city obsessed with ideas, art, and culture. Athenian boys were off studying poetry and philosophy, while life for most women was, well, pretty much confined to the home.
So just for a second, think about it. If you had the choice, where would you want to live? Would you pick the super strict, disciplined, powerful society of Sparta or the buzzing, creative, intellectual world of Athens? It's a tough call, and it's that very difference that defined the epic rivalry between these two powerhouses.
Well, eventually that rivalry boiled over and erupted into a totally devastating war, the Peloponnesian War. Basically, Sparta started getting nervous about Athens' growing power and decided to attack. Athens put its trust in its powerful navy and its giant city walls to keep it safe, but it wasn't enough. In the end, Sparta won, and this brutal war brought the golden age of Greece to a shattering end.
But before that war, oh man, Athens went through this incredible period of peace and prosperity. We call it its golden age. This was a time when art, government, and philosophy were just flourishing, all under the leadership of a brilliant statesman named Pericles.
And probably their most famous invention from this time was democracy, which literally means power to the people. In Athens, every single male citizen had the right to go to the assembly, speak his mind, and vote directly on the laws of the city. Now, we have to be really clear about who got left out. Women, foreigners, and enslaved people had no voice at all. But for its time, this was a totally revolutionary idea.
This era also gave us the big three of philosophy. First up, you've got Socrates, who famously taught by just asking questions, getting people to really think about everything they thought they knew. His student, Plato, was the one who wrote all these amazing conversations down. And then Plato's student, Aristotle, was a total game changer. He used logic and observation to understand the world, kind of like the very first scientist.
And their impact is still with us today. For real. You know that Pythagorean theorem you have to learn in math class? A squared plus b squared equals c squared? Yeah, that comes from ancient Greece. And the Hippocratic oath that doctors take where they promise to do no harm, that's named after a Greek physician, Hippocrates. It just goes to show you, these weren't just abstract ideas. They were practical tools that are still shaping our world.
You can literally see their legacy in buildings all around you. The Greeks came up with 3 main styles of columns. You've got the Doric, which is simple and strong, then the Ionic, which is a bit more slender and elegant, and finally, the Corinthian, which is the fanciest of them all. I bet you'll spot these styles on big government buildings and monuments all over the world once you start looking.
Life wasn't all serious politics and philosophy, though. No way. The Greeks loved entertainment. They built these gigantic outdoor amphitheaters to watch plays, and they started a little festival you might have heard of, the Olympic Games. Yep, it started as a religious festival that actually brought all those competitive city-states together in a spirit of friendly competition.
So, after the Long War weakened all the city-states, a new power began to rise up in the north. A young king was about to unite Greece and then go on to build one of the largest empires the ancient world had ever seen. His name was Alexander.
And this guy was truly something else. Get this, he was a student of Aristotle himself, he became king when he was only 20 years old, and in his entire life he never lost a single battle. He carved out this massive empire that stretched all the way from Greece to India before he died suddenly at just 32.
But you know, Alexander's biggest impact wasn't just conquering all that land. It was something we call cultural diffusion. See, as he took over new places, he didn't just rule them. He brought Greek culture along for the ride. So Greek language, art, and ideas started mixing with the local cultures in places like Egypt, Persia, and way beyond.
And the result? You got amazing cities like Alexandria in Egypt. It became the perfect symbol of this new blended world. It was this bustling center of learning, famous for its great library, which had this incredible goal of collecting all the world's knowledge under one roof. It was a Greek city, thriving right in the heart of Egypt.
Now, Alexander's huge empire fell apart pretty quickly after he died. But in the end, that didn't really matter. The legacy was already set. The ideas had spread like wildfire. The world had been changed forever by this small civilization from the shores of the Mediterranean.
So yeah, the empire itself is ancient history, but its influence is absolutely everywhere. So the next time you see a building with columns, or you hear a debate about democracy, or even just watch the Olympic Games, you're seeing the living, breathing legacy of ancient Greece. So the question is, what piece of their world will you spot in yours today?